My name is Risa Fury. I am Director of Marketing and Market Analysis at Stantec, and I am the co-chair of the International Women in Mining session this morning. I welcome you all to the session. I would like to start just really quickly by thinking about safety. The Heimlich maneuver is something that can save lives. This is the universal sign that you're choking. If you see someone choking, you take your fist, you approach them from the back, put it right shortly above the navel, and then you sort of push up. And the reason why I wanted to do this safety share is because I was at home alone working one day. I felt a little shaky, needed some protein, so I took kind of a big spoonful of peanut butter. And shortly afterwards, realized that I wasn't getting air. So being alone, it was really frightening. I thought I needed to do the Heimlich maneuver, but didn't know how to do it on my own or on myself. So this is how you would do that. You take the same fist shortly above your navel, and then you go to a chair, or better yet, a countertop, and then you can free yourself and get yourself breathing again. So I hope this safety share gives you confidence to help someone if they're choking or if you're choking. So before I go any further, I'd just like to thank FL Schmidt for their sponsorship for the second year in a row of this session. And the session itself is devoted to inspiring diverse populations, especially women and young professionals, to create their future in the mining industry. This is our lineup today. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. So, Victoria Gosteva is a global marketing and strategy professional with 15 years of experience in mining. She has extensive experience in marketing and industry analysis, competitive intelligence, value in use, pricing, economic evaluations, and other analytical projects. Victoria's experience includes working at a Fortune 500 mining company, large private EPC companies, and a public university. She's privileged to have studied and worked in multicultural environments in several countries. And finally, before I bring Victoria up, I'd like to just say that Victoria is really one of the most positive, optimistic people that I know. She always has an intelligent answer, and she really is a person that you can learn from. So I'd like to welcome her to the podium.
Thank you very much, Risa, for the very warm introduction, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. And I'd like to start with thanking Risa Fury for inviting me to this session to present. That was about a year ago when we met, and Risa inspired me to join the Women in Mining movement and present here. So Risa is the chair of the Women in Mining organization in Denver, and got named one of the 100 inspirational women in mining last year. So kudos to Risa. And I'd like to, not to brag, but I like to say that Risa and I represent women in mining values in action. We work for competing companies, but we cooperate together towards these women in mining goals. So originally, Risa had asked me to present on my own journey in the mining space, my own mining career, and so let me start with that. I am originally from Moscow, Russia. I was born and grew up there back when Russia was part of the Soviet Union. And I majored in double major mining engineering and economics. And the choice was really just because my parents were geoscientists and it kind of felt comfortable territory. And at the time, my parents had actually advised me to not pursue a strictly technical field, but to do something with economics, business. And the reason for that was really geopolitical, because the Soviet Union was on the brink of collapsing, and we had an abundance of engineers, really, like half of the country were engineers. And we had a shortage of business professionals. So really, that's thanks to the geopolitical reasons why I chose this major. And then I got an opportunity. I got lucky enough to come to the States in '97 as a graduate exchange student. And that's also thanks to macroeconomic, economic reasons. So in the 90s, all of the major oil and gas companies were trying to get their foot in the newly opened vast Russian oil and gas markets. And they were sponsoring this exchange program jointly with the American Geological Institute and the Russian Ministry of Natural Resources. So that's how I landed in Austin, Texas in '97. Talk about culture shock. And I love Texas. It's just Russia back then was really, really different. So that was a very interesting experience. And originally, I was never going to stay in the States. Everybody was asking me when I was leaving, are you going to stay? You are going to stay. And I was saying, no, no, no. Of course, I'm coming back. So another lesson learned, never say never. You know, things change. You have to be ready to adapt and be flexible. And that's exactly what happened. So in '97, '98, if you remember, the Asian financial crisis happened. I feel like all my life is career choices are bent by all those economic events. And the Russian currency tanked, so no job opportunities in Russia. I extended my program for 1 more year, got my master's, and then just started my career in the States. As Risa mentioned, working in a variety of companies. Really, really grateful for all those opportunities. So I am now part of Black & Veatch. We are a global EPC company. We engineer and build infrastructure, water, power, telecom, and we are 10,000 people, employee-owned, more than 100 years old. And we like to start all our sessions with safety focus. Safety is always our #1 priority. And no task is so urgent that we cannot take the time to do it safely. And our goal is to think, plan, act, and achieve 0 injuries today. So, women in mining. In my formative years, in my childhood and in my college years, in my early career, I really did not have that concept of women in mining being an issue. I guess I was fortunate. I had fantastic role models. My parents were both geoscientists, and when they started a family, my sister was born. My dad changed his career path and quit being a field geologist, which was his passion, and became an office-based geologist. And that allowed my mom finish her PhD degree and later take a leadership position and be a head of an R&D lab. So I grew up seeing that. Later in the university in Russia, I had an undergraduate and graduate advisor, a female professor who was in her 70s when I went to school. But during World War II, which in Russia is referred to as the Great Patriotic War, by the way, not World War II, when we speak about the war in terms of Russia. Anyway, so she was running gold operations in Siberia, and she was in her 20s because most of the men were enlisted to go to the war. Women had to run factories and plants and mine sites. So that was, I can't even say it was inspirational, because kind of just normal. That was the environment. So it wasn't until much later, I think the first time I even realized it probably was an issue was when I worked at Rio Tinto, and we had in 2011 a corporate push for, improving gender parity and gender diversity. And if I remember correctly, Elaine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, back then it was kind of focused more on quotas. Let's put those quotas in and try to fill them in, which back then and now just, I don't know, feels kind of wrong to me. I don't think you can artificially do that. It can provide a short-term resolution, but probably not a long-term one. And so last year, thanks to Risa, I got more actively involved in women in mining and really just started first grasping all of what was out there. And one of my first observations was that there are so many women in mining organizations. I don't even know how many. There's the National Women in Mining, probably one of the oldest. It was based in the US, opened in 1981. And then, just in the last decade, so many others have opened. Women in Mining, US with all of the chapters, California, Denver, Arizona, Women in Mining International, Women in Mining South Africa, just a lot of all these events. And it's great, I'm not criticizing, but it also almost feels like we're too fragmented. And in that, our messaging gets a bit diluted. And I don't know, something to think about, maybe some sort of not a union, but umbrella, where we can streamline our messaging. Another observation that I had was I mostly see women in mining working in finance, HR, marketing, communications roles. That's where I see women, and not necessarily so much in operational roles. And so that should be addressed, and I believe it cannot be addressed with a drastic, radical measure. It should be a continuous improvement process. And how will we know that we have succeeded? I think it's very simple. When there is no longer need, and when it kind of looks ridiculous to have women in mining organizations, when it just doesn't make sense, that means we have succeeded. So I try to now look at a high level why and how and what can be done, sort of a high level roadmap. So why? On a global, worldwide basis, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, many governments, many private and public companies have committed to closing the gender gap. But as you probably have seen, the latest World Economic Report issued in December of 2018 showed that it will take 108 years to close the gender gap worldwide. I was pretty shocked by that number. And for the economic portion of that gender gap, it's even more, 202. On a geographic basis, Western Europe is ahead only 61 years, Sub-Saharan Africa, 135, North America, take a wild guess, 165 years. So it's good to see the commitment, though, that the United Nations, the governments are committing and hopefully will be accelerating efforts in closing that gap for prosperity and for fairness. But besides all of those high purposes, diversity also means better profitability, as been shown by multiple studies. The Peterson Institute for International Economics surveyed over 20,000 companies in 90 countries and came up that the net revenue margin would increase by 15% if female leadership increases from 0 to 30%. McKinsey showed similar results. Harvard Business Review showed a link between diversity and innovation revenues. And this actually was not just gender diversity, but diversity overall. And that's another thought that I had as well, that we can't just fix gender diversity, we should be fixing the wider, the more fundamental underlying drivers for overall diversity and inclusion. And once we fix those, automatically everything will fall into pieces, including gender diversity. Diversity also means better non-financial metrics, as shown by studies. There was this Korn Ferry Hay Group study, surveyed 55,000 people in many countries, and it showed that women scored better on so-called emotional intelligence competencies in 11 out of 12 categories. Pretty impressive. And I think that helps with emotional intelligence of a corporation, of a team, with stakeholder management. You know, women are good communicators. They are better in empathy. They are better, according to the study, on inspirational leadership, coaching and mentoring, organizational awareness, and adaptability. Approach to risk as well. I was at the Indaba conference not too long ago, and CEO of Vedanta, Singh, Dashni Naidu, presented. A young leader, very inspirational. So she was saying that she thinks the last cycle downturn could have been weathered better if we had better diversity in our mining leadership. So I have about 3 minutes. Let's take a look in the mirror. This is a study by Bedford Consulting Group, showed that 8% of executive officers in mining companies are women. The number is higher for boards. And as my thesis of my abstract stated, a lot of the women are actually in financial positions. 43% of mining companies' CFOs are women. On the right-hand side, it's a pictorial of oil and gas profile. This is top 100 oil and gas companies. Only 2 CEOs are women. And they surveyed those oil and gas executives, and it's interesting, the answer to the question why it's like this was different from men and women. Men were saying it's because there are not enough qualified women. Women were saying that they didn't feel like they were getting enough support to get ahead in their careers. And that's even a closer look. So this is a picture from IMARC conference that was held in October, and the International Council on Mining and Metals held their annual meeting there with CEOs of not all 27 attended, but all 27 men. CEOs are men, I checked that. So, and they posted, the ICMM organization posted this picture on LinkedIn, saying mining with principles. Well, it's just a look in the mirror. That's where we are. And mining does not appeal to younger generations. A lot have been said about that. Even in this conference, the keynote speech was about generational differences. So it's all of that, you know. Some are unaware of career opportunities, others are aware, but are not really interested because they have a negative impression of the mining industry. What can we do? As many have said, tell our story better. I believe that is our strong value. We are not good marketeers. We are not good salespeople. We are humble. Miners are humble, and we can improve on this. We should be telling our story better. SME is doing a fantastic job with Move Mining and other activities to promote public awareness, to improve public perception of mining. And finally, just to wrap up, that what else can be done? Culture. I think culture needs to be changed first and foremost, and it starts with the leadership committing and really walking the talk, acknowledging the biases. That's an important one. Kind of invisible. It's even more subtle than stereotyping, and a good test to see if you are maybe unconsciously biased towards someone. If you're dealing with someone, mentally flip that person with somebody else, with another person, and see how you feel. Does it feel weird? Then you're probably having unconscious biases about that person. Embracing the differences is challenging because there's safety in doing things the same way, but we should be brave enough to do that. Flexibility is usually quoted as an important value for women in operational roles. Due to remoteness of operations, you know, women are not comfortable traveling far and leaving families. And transparency helps with pretty much everything. And are we out of time? Yeah, okay. So Black & Veatch is doing a lot of good things on that diversity and inclusion front. And let me just quote our CEO who says, you know, it's good, but it's even more important because it's the right thing to do. And I believe so as well. And it should start with every one of us here on an individual basis, be the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. We're just gonna move on to the next presentation. Rosa. Okay. Rosa is the co-chair of this session, Rojas, and she did some research with Fatime. Okay, thank you. I didn't check that ahead of time. Rosa Marie Rojas holds a master's and bachelor's degree in mining engineering from University of Arizona and Pontificia Universidad Católica del Peru. Her expertise is in mine operations, strategic mine planning, business and business improvement. She has worked for BHP, Barrick, and Freeport-McMoRan. She currently is a professor in mining and geological engineering at the University of Arizona, where she's leading the Mining 360 Executive Program. Also presenting with her is Fatime Molaei, who holds a Master's of Science and a Bachelor's of Science in Mining Engineering and Rock Mechanics from University of Tehran. She got a second master's degree in Mineral Engineering from New Mexico Tech, and her expertise is in rock mechanics. Oh, go ahead and load that, sorry, load your presentation. Her expertise is in rock mechanics, geotechnical engineering, project management, and feasibility studies. She is currently a student of, she's currently a PhD student at the University of Arizona, where her research is on simulation in nanoscale. Welcome to both Rosa and Fatima.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Rosa Maria Rojas, as Risa introduced me. Please, if you give me just 1 second, I'm gonna open the presentation real quick. We had a presentation right before this one. All right, we're good to go. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is a research project Fatime Molaei and myself started last year. It is on assessing the effectiveness of diversity initiatives and policies in the US mining industry. We're limiting to the scope of US just to get started with, but there's a lot of work to do about that. So just to share with you a little bit about ourselves. So having worked in large organizations within the mining industry, right, for the past over 11 years since I graduated as a mine engineer, I never thought to really promote diversity and inclusion within my field. I thought I had to fit in, I had to adapt. It was a male-dominated industry, and I just had to go with it. So it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized I could promote a change into a more friendly environment for the new generations to come. So that became a passion of mine. And this is one picture of New Year's of 2010 at Escondida Mine. At the time, I was supervisor. I just recently graduated from my bachelor's degree in Peru. And this is 3 of my crew members, Oscar, Ivan, and Manuel. And we took the picture for New Year's because we had to do so. It was such a great experience, a lot of challenges, but a very, very good time. So the other picture is Fatime, the University of Arizona San Javier mine, doing some volunteer work. So let's talk about some facts. So the mining industry is going through a generational and talent gap since a few years ago. So what happened is we had a high attrition rate of 30%. So a part of the workforce that left the industry never returned, right? And we were trying to inject this new pipeline to fill into the gaps. So according to the emerging workforce trends in the US mining industry made by SME, NSSSG, and IMA, the workforce outlook shows a projected labor loss of 21% by 2019 and 52% by 2029. So these are big numbers, right, that we have to fill in to keep running the business. So talking about what companies are doing these days on regards of filling these gaps, right, they are really doing a lot of efforts for recruitment, retention, career progression, and work environment, right? These are individual efforts that we know some leading companies are doing in the industry. But what are we doing to address this issue as an industry as a whole, right? We need some D&I management metrics that we don't have right now. So that's pretty much the motive of our research. There's null data and null publications on where we stand as an industry on the effectiveness of diversity policies to improve these metrics. So let's step back a little bit and talk about why diversity is important, and just, an open discussion if you may want to participate. Why diverse teams deliver better results, and how do we make the business case for D&I, right? Are we talking about profitability or non-financial results? Are we talking about performance, work environment, morale? So there's a lot of aspects into it to make the business case for it. So just some thoughts, we'll go over it in the next slides, right? So according to the Decoding Diversity study made by Intel, this is a really good study made by 170 NASDAQ-listed US tech companies from 2014. These are some of the advantages of diverse teams, right? So the business case, right? So diverse teams deliver better results because they come from different backgrounds. They provide different solutions to a same problem. They have more instances to discuss and evaluate than more homogenic teams. So that would be the case for it. So they help improve a faster innovation, a better use of available talent. They become more productive teams, have greater financial returns, and lower turnover, as being some of them. And of course, they create a greater market share as companies. Well, this is just some bad news. It's not coming up. Okay, slow. So diversity takes time and effort. It's not an easy goal to achieve. It may take a few years, and the experts know that. So just to show you some numbers, because as an engineers, it's like we want to see the numbers. So show me the numbers. How much are we going to improve our profitability, our performance? How much could we do with this business case, right? So this is from the same study from Intel, right? And I'm going to talk about two different things, racial diversity and gender diversity, and how this impact the economical aspect of the business. So for racial diversity, for every 1% of increase in diversity, we have 3% increase on revenues for the company, in average, for this study. You could see how much increased the $1 trillion, over 24% with this representation. We also have that per every 1% increase in diversity, we have an increase of 0.35% in operating margin. So you could see also the increase in $1 billion there. So let's talk about gender diversity. How much one female leadership position could influence into the company market value. And according to this study, it could increase from 13 to 16%. And also you could see the gains into the $1 trillion. So it is a big return. But let's be real. Let's talk about how's the gender situation for mining nowadays, right? So mining is the worst industry for gender diversity, worse than oil and gas. It just have 5% of board seats held by women in the 500 mining companies. And there's some real barriers for women with families in the mining industry, and I can include myself now that I have family. So remote work locations, fly in, fly out. You live in a mining camp where you cannot take your family, your kids, so you're 50% with the family, 50% at work. And that's something companies are changing these days, so in order to have more retention of women in mining. Lack of leadership in senior positions, so from where it could cascade different policies that could improve these flexible schedules, among others. Role models, mentorship, and sponsorship, huge. We just had a session on, with a role model. It's the only women CEO in the mining company, Julie Shuttleworth, and she's going to be speaking today as well. So she's really a role model for us, and we would like to see more of that. Problematic work for culture. What I'm referring with this, it's not a environmental friendly culture, especially in mine operations where I work with. I think we could do better in terms of work environment to attract more women into the industry and retain them, which is the big elephant in the room. So let's talk about some more facts before going into the survey portion of it. According to a study from NIOSH from 2012 on the National Survey of the Mining Population, just 8% of the total population in mining are women and 92% are men. If we talk about racial diversity, well, it's also a big difference. We have 94% of white people and 6% of minorities, being the biggest one, Black or African Americans. So according to the 2013 Women Matter McKinsey study, these are some of the key steps for successful diversity program implementations across different industries, right? So this is just to give you a baseline before our research study itself, so you can put 2 and 2 together. First of all, we have to aspire. Where do we want to go? Sorry, let's go back. So we have to define a clear value proposition, right? Set few clear targets, not quotas. And this is a really controversial topic, and we're mine engineers, we're not the experts in these areas, but we hope the diversity and inclusion and HR areas could define this better, right? Assess, how ready are we to go there? So let's establish a baseline. What's the current situation? What's the current picture? What statistics are telling us up to date from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago? What are the mindsets? And this is really the motive of our research, because there's no baseline of where we're standing now and where we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago or so on. So number 3, architect. What do we need to do to get there? So let's create some targeted initiatives. And targeted initiatives have to be differentiated by different diverse groups, because different diverse groups have different needs. When we talk about gender and racial ethnic diversity, it may be different. Number 4, act. How do we manage the journey? So define the governance model, the rollout strategy. Sorry, skipping. Define the rollout strategy. Like, just launch 1 or 2 flagship projects that you could monitor rigorously, and we can actually get some metrics. Because we have metrics for everything in mining, but we don't have any metrics for diversity and inclusion, and that's what we're looking for. And finally, advance. How do we keep moving forward? How do we build real inclusion and take advantage of your diverse teams? So address potential mindset barriers, unconscious bias training, and how do we implement this through a systematic change management along the organization? How do we hold our people accountable, our managers accountable, to hold their teams accountable to move along with this plan? So our research objectives were pretty much established a baseline of where we stand as the effectiveness of diversity initiatives in the industry, considering the metrics of recruitment, retention, career advancement, and work environment. How much did this decrease or increase in the past decade? we targeted 10 years back of data. We reached out to over 50 companies in the US. Unfortunately, due to data confidentiality, we couldn't get much from the companies except for 1 or 2. So we had to think about other route to get this data. So what we thought is we have different platforms, such as SME and other societies, the National Mining Association. So what we developed, it is pretty much a survey where we ask individual employees in the mining industry across the US for their individual perceptions of how diversity policies have improved these metrics in their companies. Okay. So going into the methodology, I would like to explain this in more detail. So there's 2 paths, right? The one we try to do with the companies, which is the one we have on the right-hand side, that at this moment is not the one we're pursuing because we have limited data for that. We have no access for data. So the one we're pursuing is the climate survey we develop, for the individual employees within the industry. We partner with SME leadership, and we have started doing the research already in 2 instances at this conference and in the SME Arizona conference, and we will have 4 more for the rest of this conference. So we're collecting pretty good data. And what we would like to do is go over the actual questions and show you what we mean with this and what's the action plan. So with that, I'll leave it to Fatima.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I think I don't have too much time, less than 10 minutes, I think, right? 3 minutes? Okay, let's go for 3 minutes. Actually, we did some research. We had to kind of survey the same question to different platform. 40 people answered our question in SME Arizona conference, and 27 used the link in SurveyMonkey and answered our question. We know that this amount of people are not a good representative of the show that what's the currently situation of the mining engineering or mining industry right now. But just we wanted to share a result with you, and we hope that we could get more result here from the SME, and also we hope that we could get more information, more result from the companies. Result shows that, as you could see in the graphs, about 52% of people who answered us were female, 48% was male, and the age range is, most of them is in 30 to 39 years old. About race distribution, 69% of people who answered our question was in white, their race is white, and the rest of them are in the other race distribution. And about ethnicity distribution, it shows that 66% of people are white, 18 are Hispanic or Latino, and the rest of them are in the other ethnicity. And we asked about size of company, and most of people, about 30% of them, are in the companies that the size is between 50 to 1,000 of people, employee. What's your role in organization is another question that we asked, and 40%, that is the most percentage of this distribution, shows that the people who did answer or question was in technical, in the engineer or scientist part, and the rest of them are in the senior management, middle management, and so on. The other question that we asked about the area of industry that they are working, as you could see, 44% answered us they are working in a mine site, and about 20% was in consulting company. The rest of the question is based on the range. It means that, do you agree with this topic or no? My workplace has a diversity or equal opportunity policy. As you could see, the average of people answered agree or strongly agree. We give a weight to the answers. 5 is strongly agree, and 1 is strongly disagree. And this average, 3.9, is more closer to the strongly agree or agree, and it shows that most of them agree with this term. The other question was, my workplace hosts training on diversity awareness to promote a more inclusive work environment at least once a year. 2.7 is average. It means that it's not too much. It's more closer to agree, but not too much. So it means that we need work more on this topic in the companies. The other question was, my company has a diversity and inclusion position or a designated person with a special knowledge and the responsibility of the topic. It's 2.5, it's the middle. It means that half-half. Some of them says we agree, and the rest of them says we disagree with this term. Okay. And because I don't have more time, I just want to show the question. We ask about the promotion and raises in the company is based on the merits or favoritism. As a very good result, that the average is more than 2.5. It shows that it's mostly based on the merit. And the other question is, I believe diversity initiatives have improved my company's ability to recruit the best talent. It's average on 3. It means it's more closer to agree, but it's not too much. I believe diversity initiatives have improved my company's employee retention is in 3, and again more close to agree. So we try to just collect this question. It's our pleasure if you help us, if you have any feedback, if you have any suggestion, let us know, because we just want to show where is the mining current situation in the point of view diversity and inclusion. So we have to work more on this, and we hope that we could get more results, work on it, analyze the result, and show the better result, the realistic result about the diversity and inclusion in the mining industry in the United States. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks, Dr.
Time for question.
We're going to hold questions since we want to move on to the next presenter. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, our next speaker is Elaine Dorward-King. Before I introduce her, I want to show you all this picture that I took. Oops, previous one. I took this picture earlier this year at Cape Town. You might not be able to see this, but this is the Jumbotron in a really big conference room. Elaine was on stage speaking, and this was her being projected on 2 separate screens in front of hundreds of other people. So I'm very honored and very humbled to have her here presenting today. Elaine Dorward-King is Executive Vice President, Sustainability External Relations at Newmont. Prior to joining Newmont, she served as Managing Director of Richards Bay Minerals in South Africa. Dr. Dorward-King previously served as the Global Head of Health, Safety, and Environment at Rio Tinto, and also has held leadership positions at Rio Tinto's copper and borates business. She brings 25 years of leadership experience implementing sustainable development, safety, health, and environmental programs. She holds a bachelor degree in science from Maryville College and a PhD in analytical chemistry from Colorado State University. Welcome, Elaine. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, if I'd have known my hair looked that gray, I would have done something about that before that presentation. Okay, well, it's good to be here this morning and see some familiar faces and have the opportunity to talk about such an important topic. I was asked to spend just a minute or two before I dive into what I really want to talk to you about, and that's the journey that Newmont is on to improve diversity and inclusion. About a couple of lessons from my personal journey as a woman in the mining industry. And that's usually more fun when I see more people that are earlier in their career in the audience, but I'll give it a shot anyway and just say you know, the three things that I reflect on are always have a sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously, and remember that often things that you feel as slights aren't intentionally toward you. They are often the result of unconscious bias or unconscious action, as our first speaker mentioned. Also, don't wait to be invited to the party. If you have something to offer, if you have a way to contribute to your organization or to a conversation that's going on, volunteer, join, butt in, and be part of that. And then make sure you own your own career. Nobody else, even your sponsor, your mentor, or anybody is going to care about your career as much as you do. You've got to own it. But you also have to own your life and make sure you're achieving that work-life balance that's so important, because at the end of the day, you're not doing anybody any good if you're not taking care of yourself. And that's a hard thing for us to do. This thing does have a mind of its own, doesn't it? Okay. So I will turn to the next slide, which has strangely weird populating. As the first two speakers have mentioned already, the business case for diversity and inclusion is clear. A diverse and inclusive environment does improve business performance. 83%. A 43% improvement in team collaboration. And this is confirmed by various studies, and the studies that we cite and we quote are Deloitte, Catalyst, and the book that Iris Bonet wrote, which is about what works with regard to diversity and inclusion in the workforce. When our workforces reflect the communities where we operate, our understanding of those communities improves, and there's a positive impact on reputation as well as on our social impact. The impact of diversity and inclusion on business outcomes is clear, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means inside of Newmont. But it's more than improving the numbers. It's truly about creating a culture where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and enable the creation of an organizational culture where everyone can have a sense of belonging and fully contribute to the objectives of the organization. We're looking at the journey for diversity and inclusion similar to the way that we look at our safety journey. Inclusion is one of our 5 core values, along with safety, integrity, responsibility, and sustainability. Our journey begins at the awareness, moves into discovery, into understanding and application, to integration, and finally to realization, where employees take accountability and ownership for having a globally inclusive and diverse environment. And I'll show you some of the things we're doing in Newmont. We feel like we are very committed, we have done a lot, and yet if we look honestly at where we are on this maturity journey, we are still barely nudging out of the awareness box and moving up toward the discovery box with all the commitment that our CEO and others have shown. So it's like safety. It's a tough journey, and you've got to keep moving and keep working toward that aspiration that Rosa spoke about. Our strategic framework is based on the lessons that we've learned since 2013, which is when we seriously began this journey. We refresh our strategy every 3 years, and it is a practical strategy. It's a data-driven strategy, and we seek for it to be an actionable strategy. We focus on 3 pillars, which you can see on the slide: inclusive leadership, which is about embedding our value of inclusion and the importance of diversity in our culture. Our near-term priorities are to provide education, learning opportunities, and feedback to leaders, identify and eliminate symbols of exclusion. That's an interesting thing to think about in your workplace. Sometimes we don't even notice things that actually are symbols of exclusion. Promote authentic and direct dialogue about inclusion and diversity and about performance and potential, and implement inclusion check-ins in the workplace. The second pillar is to disrupt our people systems, to improve diversity through interventions across the entire employee life cycle. In the near term, we are implementing various experiments to see which types of interventions are going to be the most effective and will be able to allow us to make the most progress. And finally, leverage accelerators, to leverage resources and actions that are dedicated to accelerating our progress. We've already implemented a number of initiatives, and we are trying to understand which ones are working the best and put more emphasis on those so we can keep moving on the journey. We don't want to be part of that 108-year timeline to get to that diversity and inclusion goal that we have. Okay, this thing really does have a mind of its own. As one of our other speakers said, being able to measure what we're doing in the right way is critically important. And that's important if you're going to make progress in any type of effort. And these are some of the metrics that we are tracking. It's clearly easier to track diversity. You know, we've been doing that for a long time, counting numbers. Yet what we've learned is that being able to measure inclusion is ultimately going to be more important to help us achieve success. Aside from employee surveys that most organizations use to measure inclusion, we've added things like inclusive leadership training, eliminating those symbols of exclusion that I mentioned. One example of that would be making sure that we actually have PPE, have uniforms for women that fit at our operating sites around the world. You know, that's a subtle message when a young woman rocks up to work and there's no uniform that's even vaguely close to fitting her, which creates not only that symbol of exclusion, but could be a safety issue in the workplace. We also are tracking metrics associated with our business resource groups, which are bottom-up employee-driven groups, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And tracking those people systems that we have in place, which hopefully will allow us to interrupt that unconscious bias that we know is an issue in the workplace. It's an issue for all of us, no matter whether we recognize it or not. We are proud of the progress we've made, and we recognize that however, we recognize that we still have a long way to go on the journey. I mentioned that inclusion is one of our 5 core values. We talk a lot about our values at Newmont. Certainly we talk about safety, but we talk about sustainability, we talk about inclusion, responsibility, and integrity as well. And that starts with our CEO. That's critically important. But all the other senior executives in the organization dedicate time to these issues and to our values. And that includes, we've all taken unconscious bias training in a facilitated workshop. We've launched inclusive leadership workshops in all of our regions, and those will be facilitated by Korn Ferry certified talent management leaders, again, to help us understand this inclination toward unconscious bias that we have. We will have results by the end of the year on some of those experiments that we're conducting, which include blind resumes. So taking names, gender identifiers, ethnic identifiers off of resumes, inclusive job postings, diverse hiring slates, making sure all slates that come forward for recruitment or advancement are diverse. in the choices that that manager has to look at for those opportunities, and having diverse interview panels as well, because the data show that the people that are interviewing have a influence how people respond to certain questions and represent themselves when they're competing for opportunities. From a diversity point of view, we have achieved our national representation goals. We ended 2018 with gender representation of 42% on our board of directors. Newmont's quite proud of that. And in addition to gender diversity, our board of directors has at least 5, and I think maybe even 6 nationalities on our board. So we are really serious about this. We have 19% gender diversity at the executive level globally, and 15% women in the workplace all across the board globally. And we are proud of the results, but as I said, we are continuing to focus on how we can not only improve against both the diversity and inclusion metrics, but accelerate and try to move faster. Paradigm for Parity is a movement that CEOs, senior executives, board members, and business academics have created that commits to an inclusive workplace where women and men will have equal power, status, and opportunity in the workplace by 2030. Newmont, our CEO Gary Goldberg, has committed Newmont to Paradigm for Parity, and it comes with a number of specific things that we need to do to be members of this. Our board chairperson, Noreen Dole, and 2 other of our board members, our female board members, are original founders of this movement. The Paradigm for Parity provides a roadmap and a toolkit that outlines a science-based framework and roadmap for accelerating not only gender parity, but providing guidance to pursue solutions to building an inclusive workplace around all the dimensions of diversity. This is an excellent initiative for us. It aligns directly with our values and with the commitment that we've made to inclusion. We completed the first toolkit in 2017. That's a data-driven analytical review of our current state, so where we are currently in the organization, followed by focus groups around the globe to identify root causes. And for 2018, we prioritized our strategies for progressing that inclusive culture and are beginning to test programs for attracting and hiring a diverse talent pool. And you can find more information about Paradigm for Parity on their website. And I'd encourage all of you to go back and see if you can encourage your CEOs to also sign up to this initiative. I mentioned 2 minutes. I mentioned the BRGs, and they're extremely important. They've been a wonderful aspect of creating the safe spaces, opportunity for open discussion forums, and networking platforms across a diverse group of people and allies inside Newmont. We have 24 BRGs globally that focus on issues such as women, veterans, the LGBTQ community, culture, health and wellness, together with allies. We have 750 employees involved in those VRGs, and 40+ major programs were organized last year, which included partnerships with others, including external communities, to progress issues. And they've really created a interesting space for different kinds of diversity to thrive and for us to work. And in particular, if you think about gender in the mining industry, you know, it's really important. Women alone cannot change the situation. We have to have allies, and having so many men as allies of our Women and Allies BRG has been critically important, as well as having non-veterans support our veteran BRG and non-LGBTQ employees supporting our Pride BRG. So this is the last slide, which presents some lessons that we've learned on our journey. The first I spoke of, it's critical to having top leadership really understand and visibly support the diversity and inclusion journey. The second is that having too much focus on the numbers can create the opposite of what you want to create in terms of an inclusive environment. It can leave the majority group, which are often men, feeling fearful or anxious about the change that's going on in the organization, and leaving the minority of women with a burden to prove they really deserve to be in the roles that they are, and in a situation where it's difficult to get that support from peers. We also have learned it's important to leverage our internal data to really understand what's going on in the organization, not to think we understand, but to really try and quantify and understand, and to create those safe environments for open and safe conversations among all employees is absolutely critical. We talk a lot about safety and the importance of speaking up. It's just as important for people to feel like they can speak up when they see things that aren't aligned with our inclusion value as well. So I want to stop and thank you for your attention, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Elaine, thank you so much for being transparent with your company data. I think it's really important that just as we have role models in the industry, we need companies that are willing to serve as role models for the rest of the industry. So thank you.
Este taller de Mujer Roca me ha encantado porque he aprendido muchísimas habilidades de liderazgo, comunicación, cómo plantear mis metas a futuro, cómo materializarlas y ponerles un límite de modo que éstas puedan realmente aplicarse en mi vida diaria.
Que a mí me ha ayudado a fortalecer mis capacidades, a ser un agente del cambio, a dar iniciativas, a ser perseverante y sobre todo a ser proactiva.
Ser parte de este primer grupo de Mujeres Roca realmente ha sido un evento que sin duda ha marcado un hito muy importante en mi vida, porque recibir estas sesiones de coaching han sido muy enriquecedoras para poder conocerme mejor, creer, perseverancia, responsabilidad, actitud y confianza.
El objetivo general es replicar todo lo aprendido para que los demás, mi comunidad, mi familia, la universidad, puedan ser parte de este gran cambio, porque el cambio es la base para cualquier desarrollo. Ha sido muy enriquecedor porque las diferencias que he podido apreciar en otros grupos me ha ayudado para poder tener ciertas ideas y poder aplicarlo ahora que estoy haciendo mi tesis.
Mi experiencia aquí en Mujeres Roca ha sido muy fortalecedora, muy simbólica y para mí única. Y creo que va a ser una experiencia importante para todas las mujeres del Perú para su desarrollo y su participación e inclusión en la minería moderna en el Perú.
Those are some of our sponsors in this program. Okay, so I'll talk first a little about OMA, our organization, and then about the program Mujeres Roca. So, OMA is a non-profit organization founded in 2014 by Pilar Benavides, a former president of Guayme, Peru. Pilar belongs to a traditional mining family that promotes responsible mining, but unfortunately she is not here today because of some health issues. Okay, how this initiative started? During Pilar's time at Guayme, she became aware of the importance of having strong soft skills and how they improve the person's performance and employability. We all know the challenges of today related to the ability to adapt to changes, to work in teams, and to transcend our differences. Although many people have these abilities inherently, others must work to develop them. So OMA's purpose is to compensate this need, especially manifested in students of the public universities across the country, by offering free workshops that involve emotional and cognitive elements, making the learning sustainable and applicable to many work contexts. We seek to identify expertise that has not been exploited and skills needing further development. And why? Why all this? Our regions need leaders at all levels, able to motivate and mobilize people to achieve goals and to undertake their own projects, life projects, in their places of origin. We believe this is essential to reduce inequality, poverty, and migration to the capital city, seeking work opportunities, which is still our situation today. But I'm here to talk about Mujeres Roca, the program. I think everybody knows that Peru has a long mining history dating back to pre-Inca times. Today, this industry continues to be key to Peru's economy, representing about 10% of the country's GDP. This percentage refers only to mining exploitation, but if we add all the industries around mining, the percentage goes up to 40%. We know as well, and we hear in the speeches before, that women participation contributes to increased revenues because, among other things, they provide a vision and experience that enhances the debate and decision-making. Women can contribute a lot in the social, environmental, and safety field, as well as in directive and operative positions. They promote a culture of change in which values such as ethics and honesty prevail. Studies clearly show that women participation is not only a matter of human rights and gender equality, but of productivity and profitability. Nevertheless, the mining sector has the fewer number of women on boards of any industry group in the world, including Peru. But it is necessary to change the chip from the girls' education to the promotion of careers labeled as masculine. With this in mind, we decided to expand our activities and create, together with the Chamber of Commerce Canada Peru, the program Mujeres Roca, in order to inspire a greater participation of women in the industry. The program, something happened here. This is the program, sorry. The program was first launched in 2016 within the framework of Expo Mina Peru, which is a large event every 2 years that take place in Lima. And the applicants to the program need to provide evidence of their academic and professional suitability and must be in their final year of studies or just graduated. A special committee selects 10 participants for each edition. We have had more than 80 candidates per edition, more or less. The invitation to participate and the specific requirements are published throughout the national universities and networks of the Chamber of Commerce Canada Peru and OMA. We bring the participants to Lima to a 4-day program that begins with a workshop called Kalpa Warmi, that in Quechua means women's strength, to develop personal knowledge, leadership, women empowerment, encouraging economic independence, so important, responsibility and honesty, crucial values to fight corruption in our society nowadays. Then they attend group mentoring with top executives in the corporation's premises who share their experiences and knowledge with them and provide opportunities to build a network, to share resources, to acquire referrals on the profile needed. So they really gain skills and knowledge to move their careers forward. Today, We have had 3 editions, so I say we are very new in this, and benefit 30 young women, and the results are this: 11% are in supervision positions, 47 in operative positions, and 42 just beginning their careers. Our projections on the program, are to carry out 2 programs per year, and extending also the coaching and mentoring carried out also by the Escuela Mentoring from Spain. We have an alliance with them for the mentoring, and implement also job offers opportunities through the Chamber of Commerce, Canada, Peru, with its members. We are also in conversations with different educational institutions and similar organizations so we can enhance our program and make it sustainable in time. Although the program is new, it brings together young women leaders with clear goals, committed to the values and principles of social equity and economic development. These young women are carrying out different activities in the universities and regions in order to promote a greater participation of women in the industry and to prevent also, very important, dropouts in the early years of studies that we are having today. The great challenge for women today is to turn all barriers into opportunities and aim high, since from the highest positions, the possibility to do more is greater. And for this, training and preparation is essential, as well as the exchange of experience. Let me finish with a, I have time? Little? Yeah, with a short video of one of the participants, the testimony of one of the participants.
Hola, soy Nadia Paz, ingeniera metalúrgica. El programa hizo que yo haga una pausa en mi vida y que en esa pausa determinara
I'm sorry, there's no sound.
algunos hitos que yo debo de cumplir para seguir mi camino hacia el éxito. Considero que el programa... Me siento una mujer privilegiada, ya que en realidad somos pocas, ¿no? Y las pocas que en este momento estamos en este rubro, queremos que también más mujeres se sientan bien, se sientan contentas, con ganas de participar dentro del rubro.
Well, I'm sorry, the sound is not good, but she is telling about the program and how the program improved her goals and her motivation to be in the industry and to replicate the program to other young girls after them in the universities and in every event and every, opportunity she has. So, thanks for hearing this presentation, and I hope I can get some feedback and support from you to make this program sustainable in time. Thank you very much.
We actually do have a little bit of time for questions if anyone has a question for Susana. I guess from my part, I just want to thank you for doing this important work, for taking these programs to Latin America, because it really is going to fill our pipeline as we move forward. Any questions from anyone?
It's been a pleasure here.
So the question is whether you want to expand to another country.
Well, we are still beginning with this program and trying to get it better and better. And we are expanding not the program Mujeres Roca, but other coaching workshops and that we have been in Chile once and in Colombia also we're going to be, maybe this year. But with the program Mujeres Roca, we are still in Peru because we have to have the contact of all the companies, the executives of the companies to get the mentoring and so maybe in the future, with pleasure. OMA finances from donations from the companies, the mining companies in Peru, established in Peru. So it's we are doing a big effort to get this fundings. No?
Okay, Susanna, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Susanna.
Take it out later.
Yeah, I'll do it. Julie. Okay, so so if any of you attended the Women of SME breakfast this morning, you will have heard Julie speak about her early career. And in this presentation, she's going to talk about her transition to becoming Deputy CEO of Fortescue Metals Group. And I saw this headline and I just thought it was so cool because you'll go into this, but you know, Fortescue has a female CEO, Elizabeth Gaines, and Julie is the Deputy CEO, and they really are knocking it out of the park. So congratulations. So Julie has 24 years mining experience in Australia, China, Tanzania, including 19 years working with Newcrest, Sino Mining, Barrick Gold, and Fortescue. At Fortescue, she commenced as general manager at Cloudbreak Mine and subsequently took up the position of general manager at the Solomon Mine. I believe that's the, Fortescue's biggest mine. And to date, she has received numerous accolades. She is a fellow of AusIMM, a graduate member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, a member of SME, a member of MMA, and she serves on the AusIMM Council for Diversity and Inclusion. Welcome, Julie, and thank you for your commitment to SME, because traveling from Australia is not that easy. We're glad you make the effort. Welcome. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. And firstly, thanks to everyone that came to the Women in Mining breakfast this morning, where I did a keynote speech. The purpose of this presentation is to expand on my experiences in the last year in my new role as Deputy CEO for Fortescue. As a quick snapshot, Fortescue is the 4th largest iron ore mining company in the world. Our operations are based in the northwest of Western Australia in the Pilbara region, and we ship 170 million tonnes of iron ore per year to China and other countries, and we're recognised as the world's lowest cost producer of iron ore to China. Our operations are Cloudbreak, Christmas Creek and Solomon mines, and we're currently constructing Eliwana mine. We've got 620 kilometres of railway network, which is fully owned and operated by Fortescue, and a 5-berth port in Port Hedland, fully owned by us as well. And we also own 8 very large ore carrier ships that transport our iron ore overseas. So that's a quick snapshot of the company. We've been very successful over the last 15 years since the company was founded in growing the company to where it is today. We're now produced over 1 billion tonnes of iron ore, and now we're in a phase where we're looking for growth and development of the company outside of Australia into other countries and into other commodities such as copper, gold, lithium and other commodities that support the electrical vehicle market. So that's a quick snapshot of Fortescue. I'm going to talk about some of the key things that helped me get this role. And there you'll see Elizabeth Gaines, our CEO, and our founder and chairman, Andrew Forrest. And my new role was announced at the same day that Elizabeth's role as CEO was announced. And so for a mining company, a very large mining company, to have a female CEO and a deputy CEO is really quite unique. And obviously our chairman and founder, Andrew Forrest, and the whole board of directors is very supportive of that. So what helped me get this role? I've had 23 years operational experience at mine sites in Australia, China and Tanzania over various commodities of gold, copper, iron ore and others. And those operational roles included 15 years in management positions, including 9 years as general manager at 4 different mine sites across several different countries. So for me, that operational experience is a very strong foundational background to move into this Deputy CEO role, as I truly understand the mine sites and the people at the mine sites where we've got most of our workers employed. Other things why I got this role is about delivering results and being an authentic leader. Delivering results is a very important way to get recognised and to earn your promotions, and I spoke about that this morning. And for me, at Cloudbreak and at Solomon, some of the results that I delivered for the company was improving the safety performance significantly and reducing costs by over 50% at both of those mine sites, as well at Solomon, increasing production in just 2 years from 70 to 75 million tonnes per year by only spending about $3 million. So that was some of the achievements that got me recognised by the board. Fortescue is a company that's based on core culture and values, and we really have a differentiating culture where family and empowerment, enthusiasm and determination, setting stretch targets and having a go. You might not always get it, but you've got to have a stretch target plan A and a backup plan B in case plan A doesn't work. And these are qualities that the chairman and founder, Andrew Forrest, put into the company 15 years ago. And he's looking for people with those sort of qualities when he appoints his core leadership team and key executives. So for me, there's no doubt that me embodying those culture and values was a key part of why I got this role. Energy and enthusiasm and being positive is really key as a leader. And in my mind, that's also one of the key reasons I got this role, for the energy I bring, the enthusiasm and support that I give to the teams, and that positive energy that people like to see. Also in this role, it's going to be important for me to have an ability to learn quickly, going from 23 years in an operational environment into a corporate role where things are completely different and experiences I've never had before. Looking after divisions I've never looked after before, such as shipping and procurement, you have to be able to learn quickly. And no doubt that the support of the board, particularly our chairman, is also a key reason that I've got this role as well, to develop for the future. One day I aim to be the CEO of Fortescue. Also important to have a good reputation both within the company and within the industry in general. And anything you do that could damage your reputation, obviously think twice before you do that, because your reputation only takes a few minutes to lose. Extra job responsibilities that I took on as a general manager. I mentored many young people in the company. I always speak at the leadership forums and courses that we have, and took on extra responsibilities that raised my profile within the company. Also having the confidence and showing confidence when you're dealing with key executives, the board, speaking in front of people is very important to have. And being approachable. When you've got a large mining workforce, it's very important as an executive to be approachable, so that even the boilermaker, the truck operator, any supervisor can come to you and be open. And that's a really important trait of a strong leader. And humility in leadership. Being humble, not being the smartest person in the room, and also showing that you're on the same level as everybody else is really key. So what have I been doing in this last year, in this role? I've been working with the core leadership team who you see here. This is the team that's leading the company. We've got Ian Wells, our Chief Financial Officer, Elizabeth Gaines, our CEO, myself, and then Greg Lillyman, our Chief Operating Officer. So now I'm a peer there with Greg Lillyman. Previously, I was reporting directly to Greg. So that's one of the challenges that I've had to work through with Greg, from going to reporting to him to now being a peer with him as part of the core leadership team, and we've worked through that really well. Part of my responsibilities in this role is to lead Fortescue's next phase of growth and development into other countries and into other commodities. The business development and exploration teams report to me, so I'm quickly learning those areas. Also, the shipping fleet reports to me. We spend over $1 billion a year just in shipping alone. Procurement, information services, strategy, and all the overseas general managers report to myself as well. So the year kicked off for me after the announcement with me spending 1 month getting some personal development at INSEAD Business School in Singapore. For me, that was a fantastic commitment that the company gave to give me 1 month getting some personal development. And there's 27 people on that course from about 20 different countries from around the world. So the networking I got from that was amazing. Some of the key takeaways I got from that program was the importance of networking. Also the importance of putting time aside and carving out time for yourself. That might mean delegating responsibilities to others and empowering others with other roles and responsibilities that you previously did to let others grow, but also to carve out time for you to think and think strategically about things. And also it gave me an opportunity to think about leadership presence. And what do you show when you're a leader in terms of the presence that you bring when you come into a room or you deal with people? And that was something that I also had to work on in the last year, coming from an operational background and then coming into a corporate role. What sort of presence are you bringing to that corporate role? So that kicked off the year. And then for me, getting out to sites, very important. One of the things that stood out when I first joined Fortescue was that the executives and the board members got to site regularly and spent time with people on the floor. And that's something that I really want to make sure I continue to do in this role. And I feel that I've got an advantage over many other executives because I've spent 23 years on mine site roles, doing fly in, fly out, doing shift work, and knowing exactly all the experiences those people on site are going through. So for me, getting up to the mine sites is key. I took 30 trips up to the mine site in the last year, which I really love. I love getting back into the high vis and out of the office wear and spending time with people. So that's at our Christmas Creek mine site in the plant. And in one of the workshops, we are converting our entire fleet into autonomous haulage. We'll have over 170 trucks running autonomously across all our operations by the end of this year. And that's one of the trucks there that's getting converted with the team that's converting them. Also looking after exploration, I get to spend time with our exploration teams in Western Australia, South Australia and New South Wales. It means I get to go on a helicopter, going around with geologists, looking at maps, which I really love, getting out into the field. One of the reasons I got into the mining industry in the first place is because I love geology and the outdoors. So to be an executive and to be able to do that, which was the passion that got me into the industry, is just fantastic. Also, there's a lot of company events where I go and represent the company. This was in China, one of the ship openings of one of our ships that we were getting constructed. And there's myself and Elizabeth there celebrating the naming of that ship. In fact, I was the godmother for that ship, which I didn't even know ships had godmothers until I was asked to be the godmother, and I was able to bless that ship and all who sailed on her for good luck for the future. And they did make a big fanfare there in China about that. Also, one of our other ships came into Port Hedland, so we have another ceremony when it gets to Port Hedland. And there's myself and Elizabeth again with the team in Port Hedland celebrating the first arrival of the FMG Northern Spirit into town. I mentioned before that we've celebrated 15 years since Fortescue was started as a company and 10 years since we first started production, where we've now shipped over 1 billion tonnes of iron ore. So I was able to join at Cloudbreak Mine, our 10-year celebration, with our chairman and founder there in the middle, Andrew Forrest, and our Chief Operating Officer, Greg Lilliman, and reenact this famous photo that was taken 10 years ago when Andrew Forrest himself was on the front of the train waving the Australian flag. And many investors previous to that said, that will never happen. I'll lie down on those railway tracks. Fortescue will never send a train out of here. And here we are, 10 years later, 1 billion tonnes shipped. So it was great to be able to reenact that famous photo 10 years later. And celebrate 15 years. This is at our AGM, celebrating and cutting the 15-year cake with the core leadership team and our chairman. And this is with the board of directors and also a group of Aboriginal people who are on our leadership development program. Fortescue is very focused on development of our Aboriginal people. Over 15% of our workforce are Aboriginal people. We're the largest employer of Aboriginal people in Australia, and the federal government takes on board a lot of the programs and projects that we've got in place to help develop and employ Aboriginal people. So over 1,200 people have been developed through a program of vocational education training, and we have trade-up apprenticeships and also leadership programs for our Aboriginal people, and we've got many managers and supervisors now, Aboriginal people being good role models for others. And so that's a photograph for the board with some of those people. And obviously representing the company at various speaking events, I've had to do a lot of this last year. That photograph on the left-hand side is at the International Mining Conference in Melbourne, which is Australia's largest international mining conference that we have every year. The 4 representatives from Fortescue are there on the left. Notice anything? All women. So we've got the General Manager of Corporate Affairs, myself, the CEO, and the General Manager from Argentina. And I'd also like to add the General Manager from Ecuador is also a woman who was transferred there from our government team. So we've got 25% of our senior leadership in the company are women, which provide fantastic role models for the rest of the company. And also 5 out of our 9 board members are women. We've got many career resiliency programs for women. We've got practical initiatives to support women coming back to the workplace after they've had a family. One of those examples is a childcare facility in our office, which is used by both men and women, supporting working parents. And that is able, you can actually go in there and sit at desks and watch your children play, or there's experienced child carers that will look after your children while you're working and having meetings, and that's free of charge for parents to use. We've also got lots of different flexible working arrangements, which for people working fly in, fly out is quite unique. So people on a 2-week on, 1-week off roster may share with somebody else. So there's 2 people sharing one person's job. So instead of doing 2 weeks on, 1 week off, you'll do 2 weeks on, 4 weeks off. And that supports working parents, supports people that have got other responsibilities. And those are just some of the examples that Fortescue is putting in place that are practical, that help working parents. I've taken quite a few trips to China, looking after procurement and having our customers in China. I travel there quite regularly. That's at some of the manufacturing facilities where we're just networking and building up relationships with our Chinese suppliers and customers. Also, the shipping team, I look after the shipping team. They're based in Singapore, so I travel to Singapore regularly to catch up with the team. That's having a Chinese New Year celebration. And I look after the team in Argentina. We've got about 20 people on the ground there now doing exploration in the Andes. I was just there earlier this month, up at the exploration camp where we're looking for copper and gold. I've also spent time with the team in Ecuador, get to South America 3 or 4 times each year and more this year, and that's with the team there. We're looking for copper gold there as well. I'm actually heading there straight after this visit down to Ecuador with the family and back to see the team down there in Ecuador. We've also got teams working in Colombia, so I've been to Colombia several times. On one of those trips, I went to a Women in Mining function. It was great to meet other women in Colombia who are really trying to establish a Women in Mining network in that country, and that's a photograph from one of the events. Also, the other growth areas that report to me is hydrogen. We've recently announced a partnership with Australia's Premier Research Association, the CSIRO, and we're developing hydrogen technologies that we'll use at our own operations, but also with the aim to create a hydrogen business worldwide, particularly to Japan and South Korea. So that's a very exciting new business that the team that reports to me is leading. So the skills needed to make this career step, firstly, you just have to give it a go. Coming from operational background, I've never spent much time in corporate office. I really had to just think, okay, I don't know any of those things, corporate finance, investing, marketing, and all those other areas that I have to look after, but I'll give it a go anyway. I'll never be quite ready, but I'll have to learn quickly. So embracing these new challenges has been key, and just taking it on, not being sure is okay, and feeling uncomfortable is okay. Learning and adapting quickly. Importantly, to empower and encourage others. Obviously, you don't need to know everything yourself, so it's very important to empower and encourage others to do the job, and gives you time for strategic thinking and to think about these new growth opportunities for the company. So some of the new experiences and the key learnings that I've had this year from those new experiences in the corporate office environment, being used to wearing high-vis, the same clothes every day in your boots, and then having to dress up for the Perth office, and everyone in Perth office has been there for many years. All the other core leadership team have got many years of corporate office experience under their belt. And also the other thing that I realised was they all had kids in their 20s, and I've got a 3-year-old. So, leaving at 5 o'clock, I had to not feel guilty about doing that because everyone else is staying there later. Well, I need to get back home to see my child, otherwise he'll be asleep by the time I get home. So just those little things where you've got to force yourself not to feel guilty about leaving before everybody else does. And no one expects you to stay there later. It's just those pressures you put on yourself. And that was a real big learning for me to feel comfortable doing that. There's nothing more important for me to get that family balance. It's something that I had to really teach myself and push myself not to feel bad about leaving the office at 5 when everyone else stays there till 6 or 7 quite often. I've also got new reporting lines, 10 new general managers reporting to me that weren't reporting to me before, and all those new areas reporting to me that weren't before. So that's been a good learning experience as well. And dealing with the government. Now I'm meeting with the Premier of the state regularly and various ministers and things that I never had to do before, and those various other stakeholders. So that's all a new experience. And the importance of building relationships and networks, and that network is expanding, and I'm really enjoying that. It does take time to network, but it's definitely worth it. I mentioned before about feeling uncomfortable. I've had to embrace feeling uncomfortable. It's okay. It's actually when you learn the most. And our chairman actually supports that feeling uncomfortable is actually okay. You can never really feel the bottom of the pool. You're sort of trying to paddle and swim like a duck going madly, and that's okay feeling like that, as long as you know, you're learning at the same time and you've got good solid plans in place as a backup. And learning quick is something I've had to do in the last year. Team success is really key. You don't need to know everything. Rely on the team. They can be empowered and encouraged and supported by you in the role that you've got. And now I've got, don't try and be the smartest person in the room. It's really important that you're there to encourage and empower. You don't need to know everything. Don't try and prove that you know more than everybody else. Being humble is really important, and encouraging others to innovate and to generate their ideas is what's really important in this role. Hiring good people. There was a few vacancies in the team when I got the business development team. There was a vacancy of the group manager there. So it took me a while to hire a good person for that role. In the meantime, I was trying to do that role myself, which really added a lot of extra workload and really proved to me the importance of having good people so you can delegate and empower them. But once you've got good people, support and develop them. Anything you can offload to them, which is the opportunity for them to grow and develop, make sure you do that. And really, at the end of the day, the team being successful is what matters most. And I've really learned this last year that nothing's as valuable as your time. I've got my next 8 months fully planned out. Day by day, I know where I'm going to be. Well, I think I know where I'm going to be. You've got to be ready to change the plan because it can change depending on what happens at the time. So you've got to be flexible to change. But for me, it's really important to be organised and plan ahead. And that means planning ahead time for you and your family and holidays and breaks away as well. So when I'm talking about being planned and organised, I'm scheduling those things into my plan as well, making sure that every year I get many holidays, actually 1 to 2 months, I'm taking either a 3-day or a 4-day trip somewhere or a 1 week or a 2-week trip somewhere to have time with the family. I've also had to learn to say no even more than before. If I said yes to every invitation that I got, I'd be going to dinner or to some function every night and every lunchtime and never see the family at all. So you have to be very selective. What do you choose to do that's going to add value to you and to the company? Don't feel like you have to say yes to everything. Delegate to somebody else to do that would love that opportunity to get out and network and have those opportunities that you get invited to. So usually when I say no, we're sending someone else, and that gives a younger person in the company the opportunity that they never otherwise would have got. And I mentioned about carving out time for the family. Very important to do that. Family balance means, to me, also lifestyle balance, time to do the things that you want to do that give you energy and keep you positive. So with that, some of the things in the last year that I've been able to do by planning, being organised and making it happen. It just doesn't happen. You have to make it happen, that time with the family and those fun things. And that's a picture there of my little son, Jet, and my husband, Brett. If you haven't got it, Brett plus Julie equals Jet, a name combination. And he's 3 now, and he's a fantastic little traveller. That's us in Norway, in the middle of the Gobi Desert, and there's ice there, which is pretty amazing. And that's us checking on the camels through the Gobi Desert as well in Mongolia last year. And hiking holidays. This is the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. I took a trip to Sydney for work. The family came with me and we took the weekend in the Blue Mountains, always trying to find a way to combine a work trip with a family trip. And in fact, the family's here with me in the United States right now. We spent the last weekend in Yosemite and we're off to Ecuador later this week. I'm going for work, the family's coming for fun, and we're having the weekends off together. And I really have to find these ways to make it work, to get that work-life balance and make sure I'm not away for 3 weeks from the family when they can actually come with me. And now I'm in that situation where Jet's not at school yet. Brett's got his own business running from home, so he can carve that time out. So we've worked it out so it works for us as a family, which just is fantastic. I feel so lucky. We went to the Northern Territories as well last year. I love waterfalls. So does Jet. And here again is my favourite activity, which is canyoning. And this is in the Blue Mountains. We went canyoning late last year. And I've still been on several scuba diving trips. In fact, I went to Exmouth 3 times last year, Indonesia 3 times as well for holidays. Little short breaks, 3 days here, 5 days there. Don't have to be too long, but it's enough to get away. So my passion for taking photos underwater, I'm still pursuing that. And then this is in Ecuador. Obviously, if I can take a little side trip to do something fun, I do. That's Cotopaxi. So I hiked up that on a day that I had free when I was in Ecuador. And also the family travelled to me to Port Hedland, to some of our mine sites. Jet loves trains, so he was able to get on some of the trains. And there he is in his PPE just earlier this year. So just in summary, I just want to say just go for it. If you get any opportunity, even if it feels uncomfortable or you know you'll be challenged, give it a go anyway. You'll never be perfectly ready for it. So embrace feeling uncomfortable. It's actually okay. You'll learn. And empower the team for success. Empower, encourage, generate those ideas from the team. And it's really important to be authentic, no matter what. A lot of people said to me, Julie, you know, you've got to buy a new car, now you've got this role, you've got to do this, that and the other, you've got to walk a certain way, you've got to look a certain way. Well, for me, I got this role because of who I am and that authentic leadership that I brought to it. So all those coaches that told me I had to go and buy the flashiest new car and tell me I had to do this, that and the other, I sort of sacked them as a coach and did my own thing. So being authentic, no matter what, is really important. Of course, you've got to change a bit when you go from a site role to a corporate role. You do have to fit in with that environment, but it doesn't mean you've got to change the underlying person that you are and what's important to you. So that was really something that I had to reinforce and remind myself. I tell people that all the time, but I found myself having to really apply that to myself in this last year. And most importantly, it's really important to smile and have fun and enjoy life and make sure that when you've got a great career, you have a great life and a lot of fun also at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much. So I do want to open it up for questions. I'm conscious that some people may be leaving, so I would like to thank all of the speakers and our sponsor, FL Schmidt. And if you have a question, now is the time.
Yeah, so this Deputy CEO role is the first time Fortescue's had a Deputy CEO. When our previous CEO resigned just over a year ago now, the board and our chairman particularly thought, how can we shape and frame Fortescue's leadership? So that's where the concept of a core leadership team was developed with the 4 people that I showed you before, with myself and as Deputy CEO reporting to Elizabeth, working with the team. And so the previous CEO had a 7-year tenure. We expect that Elizabeth will have 5 to 7 years as well. I'm very happy in this role for that period of time. I'm learning so much and it takes quite a lot of time to consolidate in the position. We're already looking at executive general manager positions and general manager positions in the company, that succession planning. It'll probably be 1 or 2 years before we start identifying those next people for this role. But that's always something that the company's looking at, is developing our people and the next leaders. The core leadership team that I spoke about before were all promoted from within the company, and that was really fantastic and everyone fully supported that.
Any other questions? Let me ask you the ugly question. How has the male workforce reacted to the fact that you have a strongly female leadership?
So the workforce knows me well. I've been general manager at Cloudbreak and at Solomon Mine. So I've managed over 5,000 people that still work for the company. They know me as a leader. They know I'm approachable and they're very supportive of it. They couldn't have been happier that I got this role. In terms of Elizabeth, she's been on the board of Fortescue for 6 years. She was Chief Financial Officer before she got promoted to CEO. She's also very well known within the company, though she doesn't have that operational background. And that's where Elizabeth, who's got a very strong financial background, which is where I'm a bit weaker, and I've got the stronger operational background where Elizabeth's weaker. It works really well. We support each other really well there. It's been a very good support from the workforce, as well as our CFO and our CEO are men. So the whole core leadership team is 50-50 balance. The male workforce have responded really well. And that's really about being approachable and not making a big fuss of it and not overly promoting women and all those other things that could actually get the male workforce offside. So it's really about equal and people getting promoted for what they bring to the company and also how they've delivered results for the company. And there's no doubt that people can't say that Elizabeth and myself haven't delivered results for the company, so everyone supports the promotions.
What was the situation with the Operation Reid?
So Len, in the mine site within Fortescue, you mean? The Aboriginal people within Fortescue, they're integrating very well. They are getting apprenticeships and training. There's getting supervisor training. We've got supervisors, managers as Aboriginal people. So within the company, they're integrating well. We've had to do a lot of training with our supervisors, how to deal with all the other issues that Aboriginal people have. There's drug issues, there's health issues, there's a lot of other community issues that they have that we don't have. That means that our supervisors need that sort of training to help deal with that and to give them and the rest of the workforce guidance around that. Walkabout's a tough one. We take them through a 3-month training program as part of their vocational training before they come as a full-time job. They've got to earn that full-time job, but they've got a guaranteed full-time job if they do all the things they need to do. For special funerals and those sort of things, of course, they've got to go back home. Walkabout for some traditional owners still happens, but for the general Aboriginal workforce, they're not doing walkabout. Well, I'd previously thought about board positions. Several years ago, I got offered to go on quite a number of boards, but I really took this decision seriously at the time because there's a lot of women now going onto boards, which I also felt the pressure to do that. But then I also had some very strong male mentors say, Julie, you can go on a board anytime. But women in executive careers is much rarer, and being in an executive career, you can actually have direct input in decision-making, in leading and shaping the team. And it was a tough decision at the time because it was very confusing. I felt like I had to go and be a role model and do that as well as everything. Then I realised, no, if I really want to focus on my executive career, I don't need to go on a board just yet. That can come at any time. Like I'm 45 now, I can do that when I'm 65. So let me enjoy my executive career. I'm happy to do this for however long. I'll be a CEO one day. I'm in no rush. If at any time it impacts with my family and the things I like to do, then I'll stop doing it and find a way that works. So after the CEO, I'll see. I'll just leave it open. And I'm really happy with what I've achieved now. I don't really feel like I need to achieve anything else. Obviously, if I become CEO one day and it works for the family, then that's great for me. If it doesn't work, then we'll work it out. I don't know that we've published it. We speak about it at various forums and events that we get to go to. We are working with various groups in Australia. Obviously, a lot of mining companies in Australia trying to do the same thing. But we find that we're all trying to pull from the same group of talent. So we have to really create new talent and create a new pipeline and develop women in trades and women in leadership positions and those sort of things. So we haven't really published it, but it's something that we're working on within Australia to do. Yeah, we speak about this a lot in Fortescue. So there's a lot of role models. There's a lot of women that work. In fact, 95% of the women that go on maternity leave come back to work. So we have a lot of things in place to encourage working women back to the workplace. It may be part-time, 1 or 2 days a week, or they may be using the family centre, or they may be using that job share arrangement I talked about if you're doing fly in, fly out. So there is a big focus on people at the lower levels to be able to get that balance. And for men and women, it's not just about women, it's about a good balance of family for men as well. And one of our core values of Fortescue is family value. And it's one of our strongest values that we talk about all the time. And with that is not just the family you work with, but your family life outside of work.
Maybe just one more question.
Yeah. If you want to see those changes in your own organisation, firstly, if you're a leader, you can start demonstrating them yourself and setting the example. And that's what I feel is my responsibility. I bring Jet through the office. He high-fives the CFO, gives our CEO a hug as he goes past. And don't be afraid to show that you've got a family. And while I take him up to the family room, for example, or when I'm leaving at 5, people know I'm going off to see Jet. So if you're a leader, set the example yourself and make sure it's all okay. If there are committees or other opportunities to get involved with making those things, implementing those things, then get involved with those. work with the HR teams or any other leaders that can have an influence. So 1 or 2 people can have a big influence in any company, organisation or mine site. So you can be that influence yourself, but it's easier if you've got other people to help as well. So never just try and wait for someone else to do it. If you're really keen and really passionate about something, then go at it yourself. Okay,
Julie,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julie.